Hey everyone, today we are going deep into the secret origin of a formula that you probably had to memorize in school. And look, you definitely know what it is, but I'm willing to bet you have no idea who gave it to us or the incredible story behind it. So, let's dive in. Yeah, you guessed it, I'm talking about the quadratic formula. You might have spent weeks, maybe even months of your life just drilling this thing into your brain. But let me ask you, did your teacher ever mention that its real origin story involves a lost book, an ancient Indian genius, and a method so brilliant it was still being quoted for centuries after he was gone? Probably not. And there it is, in all its glory, the beast itself. It's a powerful tool for sure, but let's be honest, it looks more like some kind of secret code than a simple solution. We're all taught what it is, but we're almost never taught the why, and even more importantly, the who. And its story, well, it doesn't start in some European university. It starts somewhere much, much older. To really find this formula's roots, we have to journey back more than 1,000 years to ancient India. And there, we'll meet the mathematician at the very center of our story, a man named Sridharacharya. Now, Sridharacharya was this incredible mind working centuries before this formula was even a concept in the West. He wrote all this stuff on arithmetic, but the key to our story is a book he wrote on algebra that is now completely, totally lost to history. So you might be wondering, if the book is gone, how on earth do we know what he discovered? Well, this is where the story gets really, really cool. His method was so groundbreaking that later mathematicians, like the famous Bhaskara, actually quoted him word for word. It's kind of like finding fragments of a genius's original source code that were saved in somebody else's files. And what they saved wasn't some crazy complicated formula, but a beautifully simple 4-step set of instructions. See, this wasn't a formula you had to memorize. It was more like a recipe you just had to follow. These were verbal instructions passed down from a teacher to a student. Multiply, add, take the root, solve. It's a logical process, a systematic way of thinking that really anyone could learn. So forget that intimidating beast we saw a minute ago and just appreciate the pure, simple logic we have here. Okay, but does this ancient algorithm actually work? I mean, can a 1,000-year-old set of instructions really solve a modern problem? Well, there's only one way to find out, right? Let's put this thing to the test. Here is our test equation. 2x squared plus 6x equals 20. Now, according to Sridharacharya's rulebook, we have a clear step-by-step path to the answer. So let's just follow it. All right, step 1, multiply both sides by 4a. So in our problem, a is 2, which means 4a is 8. Let's go ahead and multiply the entire equation by 8. And that gives us this new, much bigger looking equation. I know, it looks more complicated, but just trust the process. Now for step 2, add b squared to both sides. In our case, b is 6, so b squared is 36. We're going to add that to each side. Now, this might look like a totally random step, but believe me, this is where the absolute genius of the method comes into play. This is where the magic happens. Because that last move wasn't random at all. It was perfectly designed to turn the left side of our equation into what's called a perfect square. It turns out that 16x squared plus 48x plus 36 is just a fancy way of writing 4x plus 6 squared. And just like that, a super complicated problem has become incredibly simple. And from here, the final steps are a piece of cake. You take the square root of both sides, which gives us 4x plus 6 equals 14, a little bit of basic math later, and boom, there it is, x equals 2. A 1,000-year-old algorithm just solved our problem perfectly. So yeah, it's a really clever trick. But why does this ancient method still matter so much today? Well, because this wasn't just some one-off solution. It was a fundamental insight into the very nature of algebra itself. What Sridharacharya was doing is a technique that is still taught in basically every single algebra class today. It's called completing the square. He didn't just stumble on a cool trick, he had documented the core logic of a fundamental algebraic principle over 1,000 years ago. And we know this is a fact. The 12th century mathematician Bhaskara actually gives explicit credit to Sridharacharya in his own work. He basically preserved his name and his discovery for history. It's like a clear nod from one great master to another, right? Across the centuries. So the impact of this is just huge. This simple 4-step algorithm is the direct ancestor of a core technique in algebra.
It shows us this deep, systematic way of problem solving that existed in ancient India. And it's a piece of powerful knowledge that we've literally had to reconstruct from the echoes of lost texts. It's amazing.
And really, this is the ultimate takeaway. Sridhar Acharya's genius wasn't just about finding an answer. It was about understanding the underlying structure of the problem itself. He taught future generations not just how to solve an equation, but how to manipulate it, how to reshape it, how to build it into a form that was actually simple to solve.
So it kind of leaves us with this one big question. If the origin of something as famous as the quadratic formula was just hiding there in plain sight all this time, what other modern ideas are really just echoes from an ancient world that we've all but forgotten? Turns out the history of knowledge is so much deeper than we're ever taught in school.